Wazilla. Okay, try it again. And I want to pull 8.3, item 2. Not that I'm opposed to the resolution, but I want to have a voice vote confirming the opposition to that particular sales tax regulation. Thank you.
Okay. Is there an objection to the agenda as amended? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. There are no special orders of the day, so we'll move to commission and agency reports. Public Works Director Shaw, please provide an update on the Parks and Rec Commission on behalf of Recreational Services Director Bell, who is unable to attend this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Eric Shaw, Public Works Director. The Public Works Advisory Commission, Parks and Recs Advisory Commission had the regular May meeting, and it was a pretty short meeting, but it was basically an overview of the startup process around the city with all of the parks, and Jesse Griffiths gave an update on what they're working on. There was a proposal by a volunteer group that wants to look at adding another dog park around the city, so they were given some direction on how to start to propose that. The video is online, of course, but it was about a 30-minute meeting.
Okay, thank you. And now we will hear from Acting City Planner Nygaard for a report on the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning Commission met on the 26th of May, and we were pleased to have our Public Works Director, Eric Shaw, give us a presentation on the proposed 2027 CIP project list. And that was it.
Thank you. And now we will hear from Waterworth for the sewer and water rate presentation. Director Shaw.
Madam Mayor, City Council, if you'd hang on with me just for 1 minute, we're going to try something we've never tried before. We're going to zoom into our consultants, Waterworth, as we talk about their process for creating rate updates based on the council's feedback, financial documents, and they'll kind of give you the overview of how they have worked with many, many municipalities to help them navigate that complicated process in a transparent and public-facing way. I just wanted to kind of preface this discussion. We had talked about it during the budget meetings. We received the memo from Councilmember Rubio. So this is not to propose rates going forward in the vein that those have been decided. It is in the budget discussion as we go forward, but it is more to give you the background on what they do with the numbers that we provide them and how they help decision makers digest those numbers and forecast and then reach out to the public so that the constituents that will be affected by whatever changes with the rates can understand that. And then we have an ongoing process to update those more frequently. The old model had been usually a hire consultant and they'd do a lot of work and they'd make a document and then they'd kind of hand it to the body and then the consultant was done and it was then up to the body going forward. And this is a lot more dynamic of a relationship. They're a partner with AML, and so they're actually helping quite a few Alaska communities, and it's an ongoing yearly update. They actively intake all of our data, our financial data and our billing data, and so they have a really dynamic, updatable, you can make changes on the fly to see what one small change would do for your forecast so that you don't have a static document that just doesn't really serve a community when they have to make these tough decisions. So if I could get the clerks to turn the TVs on, we should see our presenters. There we go. So I'd like to introduce Calvin and Emily. We're going to do a little bit of mic check.
Testing, testing.
We can hear you, Calvin. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, great.
Are there any concerns from the council on volume or? So we ran through this with IT we feel like we will be able to hear them well. If in the remote case they can't hear your questions very well through your mics, then I'll take the kind of presenter role and I'll repeat your questions a little bit closer to them. But we think that the volume is loud enough that it'll pick your questions up when we get to that point.
Director Shaw, I
Yes.
just want to state for the record, our stream is cut. And so I suspect the stream isn't outflowing. So I just want to state that for the record.
Oh,
We have no
okay.
video stream.
Okay. Well, I know that Calvin is taking notes, so there'll be notes associated with that. Calvin, do you want me to change the view? I'll put you as speaker.
Sure.
I'm actually gonna make you primary. Let's see if I can do that. Spotlight for everyone. All right, we are looking at you, Calvin.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation, Eric, and to Mayor and Council for the time today. We're going to go through a very brief presentation. I'll share my screen. You've got some slides that you were previously given. Give a little bit of a preface to what you're going to see here. So essentially, yeah, as Eric has mentioned, Waterworth is an online platform that the city is using to fully understand, beyond looking just at one budget at a time, really focus and look long-term into the future and understand the importance of essential services. And essentially these essential services like water, wastewater, any of your utilities are funds that you need to operate essentially as a nonprofit. Making sure that your expenses and your revenues are well balanced and that you're maintaining cash over the long haul to remain sustainable for all operating and capital related needs for each of these individual funds. So we'll start with water and then I'll get to sewer. The other thing I want to say is before I get into this, the numbers that we have in here for FY27 are based on the FY27 proposed budget. If there's any questions or anybody has anything that they'd like to see, we're happy to revisit or review. But yeah, like Eric said, there's not going to be any decisions made today. We just kind of want to show you some of the work that's been done and the tool that you have access to that you can run, multiple different scenarios and imagine different futures here. And I've got Emily from my team as well on the call. So if there's any questions, she'll be more than happy to help as well. I'm just going to share my screen. And should be seeing that now. Yes, that's good. Okay, so we start by looking at understanding of what these costs are in order to run. We'll start with your water model. And to keep your water model running, operating, and maintaining sustainability over time. And we start by looking at some anticipated costs. So we do have, just looking at operating expenses, we've got a few years of some actuals. We've got 2025's actuals, we've got 2026 budget. You see this big spike in 2027. And we can speak to that. That's a transfer that's come in for water and sewer. That needs to be distributed between water and sewer. So there's a big spike in 2027. 2028 onwards, you'll see that this area chart is slightly growing over time, just indicating that we're anticipating that inflation is going to continue to happen as it has for many, many decades. And then we can see other costs as well. So the operating costs, think of that as like paying for your staff, keeping the lights on, making sure that you're able to get your bills out on time, everything like that. Capital costs here, which are shown in green, are going to be your infrastructure. So these are the costs that are maintained to make sure that you're spending enough on your capital infrastructure to keep your assets and your system in good shape, so you can keep delivering the services, as I say, these essential water services to your customers. And currently, Wasilla doesn't have any debt on the water side, so it's just operating and capital related costs. And then we've got some revenues. So if we look at the sale of sewer service revenues, sale of water service revenues, here for your 2026 and 2027 budget. If we were to keep things as they are, you can see that these aren't going to grow over time. But as I just illustrated in the area that we do have growth in expenses anticipated. There's other operating revenues, some things like developer contributions. Sometimes there's some grants that can come along. In 2025, there was some grant, there was some contributions that help pay for some of those costs. But you'll see in the future, once we have the costs kind of set and not moving at all, we can bring back into the background. So these bars are representing the revenues coming in, so incoming cash flows. And then if we bring back in the operating expenses, you can see that your revenues themselves, apart from 2027's big spike here with the transfer, the revenues themselves, for the most part, are covering or as high as your operating costs through 2030. So through the next 3 years, you've got your revenues are strong enough to be able to cover just your operating costs, just keeping the lights on, keeping the staff paid, everything like that for the water fund. Once we bring in capital, we can see that there is a little bit of a deficit. And if we were to map what that deficit looks like over time, we can see that if we just turn on the cash position, we can see that there's cash in the bank right now. But if we were to leave it as is, keep the rates exactly where they are, revenues exactly where they are, slowly over time, your cash position is going to drop. And eventually it gets into a place, if you continue on that path, it gets into a place where you're assuming a little bit of risk. We do have an operating threshold here of 6 months of operating expenses. You can see it would be longer into the future before you'd actually be crossing that. But the trend itself is focused on understanding that there would be a deficit going forward. Now we do have another scenario here with the budget with increases, showing a 20% rate increase, or I shouldn't say 20% rate increase. It could be a 20% rate increase, but it's essentially a 20% revenue increase. So making sure that you're bringing in more revenues into the water fund to steer that black solid line, which is your projected cash, back into a positive position and get yourself into a better situation in terms of being sustainable, making sure that you're able to cover your operating costs and your capital related costs off into the future. So if I pull back this into a full chart here, you can see the kind of working ins and outs of cash flow, where your cash position is right now. And with an adjustment to the rate revenue and the revenues themselves, we would be able to steer this back into a position which is going to be much more sustainable over time. Does anybody have any questions before I jump into some rate options of what that would potentially look like?
Mr. Graham.
Thank you very much, Calvin, for the information. This is Stu Graham. Our slides don't exactly match yours, which is kind of unfortunate, but I am able to watch the TV and figure out what's going on. So with the slide that you have right now, on the board that's on your screen, what I'm looking at is the operating threshold and capital reserve policy. You say working capital of 50%, and that appears to remain fairly steady. However, a couple of slides ago, where you talked about the operating threshold, it doesn't appear on our slides that we're looking at. I was wondering, what is the difference, the monetary difference between the red line on that slide that you're at right now and the red line on the slide that we were just on? Can you move your cursor over so I can see a monetary difference there? If you move your cursor all the way.
And in fact, this is just a graph of visual change, because what's happening is anytime we're turning on and off layers, the y-axis here, which is the dollars, is changing based on the reference points. So the dollar value of your operating threshold, which is just 50%, it's just 6 months of your operating costs. isn't gonna change. You see in 2027 it's 2,405, 125. If I put everything back in, it's still gonna be 2,405, 125. It's just sometimes it can adjust the y-axis based on what you have. In fact, if I don't have the cash position in here, you can see that it's gonna change, but it still remains the same number. It's just shifting based on the legend items that we have visible at any given time.
Apparently I didn't do a very good job of explaining myself. If you could move your cursor all the way to the right on that red line, what would that number be? Versus what would it be in 2028? So here you have
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry.
threshold of 1.3 million, essentially. What is it projected to be in 2028? If you could move your cursor over to 2028.
2035, 1.3 million, 2028, just north of $1 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's half of the projected growth.
Right.
Yeah. In cost years. And one other thing I forgot to mention is I'll move the camera so Calvin can see the question asker. And so Calvin, are you able to hear everyone okay? Mr. Graham's question came through all right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. No other questions, so you can keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want to make absolutely clear here is when we're talking about revenue increases, we're talking about, when we're looking at this long-term financial model, it's all about balance, right? It's about understanding the difference. If we're looking at the cash position itself, it's the difference between the balance of a lowering cash position over time versus an increasing cash position over time versus a completely balanced cash position every time. So being able to change these variables just represents what is needed in terms of revenues. So when I say that there's a revenue increase, and I'm using the term revenue increase rather than rate increase, of this 20%, I believe it is, you can see that there's different ways to actually generate that. So when we say a revenue increase of 20%, there is an option A here where we're basically just saying, okay, let's take all of your billing data, all of your usage data that your current ratepayers are paying, and project it with a 20% rate increase. With a rate increase over time, you can see that it's going to generate more revenues. But it's not necessarily that you need to raise everybody's bill by 20% to be able to generate those revenues. The other options that we can definitely look into here, especially now that we've got the billing data, we've got the raw billing data actually onboarded within the system here, is actually change the rate components themselves. So looking at, option A versus option B, understanding that you're going to have a base charge, that most communities want to charge a base charge like you currently do. That's going to represent a readiness to serve charge. And then you also want to charge based on water consumption, and based on water consumption is going to change based on different customers' usage profiles and different times of year and whatever it may be. So we've understood that if you want, and this is just an option to look at, we can understand different ways to adjust the tiers and tier thresholds, as well as costs per dollar value of water, to get absolute control over how to generate the revenues that you need. I hope I'm saying that as clearly as I can be, but it's really about just understanding that you have the ability to move certain levers to be able to shift cost burden throughout different profiles of usage. So if you want to raise 20% more revenues, but not necessarily affect everyone across the board, maybe you want to pass some of that. This is an option, but maybe you want to pass some of those costs of that 20% that's required to keep this fund in a positive position onto higher water users, people that are using more non-essential water rather than people that are using more essential water. And so there's a few options there that can be looked at, but before I jump into anything else, and just see if if anybody has any questions about the different ways that we can manipulate this or how your customers are using water currently.
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Mayor and Kevin, pardon me for being exceedingly daft here, but if we can go back to the current baseline, I guess I really don't understand all that you're showing me here. So the black line is our current cash position. That's what we've got in the bank. Is that correct? So right now, if we pass the budget as presented, at the end of the 2026, we'd have basically 10 million in the bank with operating expenses just exceeding 2 million. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that means that we've got basically an $8 million amount in the bank. Is that correct? So that 8 million, then that 8 million is gonna have to cover our capital expenses above our operating expenses. Is that what you're trying to say? Plus cash transfers. Okay,
Ted. I'm sorry. Ted.
The only thing I would state in that is what you're saying, Councilmember Johnson, is that we also have, as we're doing with the $2.8 million transfer, we also have capital project monies that are still flowing through the budget that are part of that 8 million too. I'm just going to say that it's not just a 1-for-1, and I'm not sure if
okay, so then is what I understand from your statement is that within that 8 million, we've got committed funds for projects that have been approved that have not yet been expensed. Is that correct?
and I couldn't tell you the exact amount, but, and I'm not sure, Eric, if Calvin has looked at
Yeah.
that too, but
Well, so it's a cash perspective. So the influx of money from CIP shows up. And then when we show them that it's done, it drops back off. So it's going to have a little bit of lag to it, but you can see how the green and the blue add to the black. And so they will expend as those capital projects are built.
Mhm.
And then that's why they ask, when do you think that'll be done? That's why you see that precipitous drop in 28.
So then if we do absolutely nothing by 2030, we have a problem when we have to consider the legal liabilities that we have to have as cash reserve.
Yeah, well, it's even further than that. But as Calvin was kind of explaining, there's going to be, the optimum relationship with this fund is that enough fees are collected that it pays for the next capital project. And so right now with the surplus in the other unspecified savings account that it comes transferred through, that's augmenting this fund, but really fees, that delta that Calvin talked about, that's supposed to build on itself for the next capital project. And that's where we try to forecast what the next ones will be, so that whatever rate coming forward from this discussion plans for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you. And Calvin, this is kind of a question more for Ted, our finance guy. Ted, the last couple of meetings, you've been talking about depreciation, and the way the government does or does not do depreciation. But what is the annual depreciation on the water plant? Do we know that number?
I will ask our person with the computer. I believe it's about 1.7.
To the council through the mayor, I will find out that number. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it would be easy enough to get before the end of the meeting.
Well, if we could just have it before we discuss rates during the budget meetings, that would be fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Calvin.
All right, go ahead, Calvin.
Thanks. And the other thing to keep in mind here is 2026. This is your current budget year, and you'll see that in 2026, your expenses are lining up to your revenues based on a balanced budget. And that's represented, it may be hard to see, but that's represented in the cash position. being that in 2026, your cash position was $10 million. And by the end of 2026, which is the start of 2027, you're still going to have $10 million in the bank if all goes according to plan in terms of budget. It's the 2027 and onward that we're starting to see this dip, which represents a need for additional cash flow. Before I jump into the wastewater side of things, does anybody have any questions about the rate components, any other ways of achieving incoming cash rather than just increasing everyone's rates across the board?
No questions.
No questions. Okay. So on the wastewater side of things, again, we've got a similar graph that you've been used to looking at here, with a status quo without rate increases. There's a slightly different story on 2027 with the wastewater side of things, because there is some borrowing happening and there is some debt service associated with that. So we're going to add in a couple of additional colors here. We'll look at the operating expenses. You know, in 2027, you're not going to see this big spike, but you're going to see growth again with some inflation over time. And then you're going to see this light blue layer of debt service. So this debt service is going to be associated with borrowing, and then we'll have the capital improvements. And I don't know if Ted or Eric can speak on the capital improvements in 2027 and what those projects consist of specifically.
Yeah, so we covered that the last budget meeting, so that's primarily the digester project.
Okay, so again, operating expenses, current debt service, capital improvements. So you see this big digester project, and then in the future, we've just got sort of a placeholder budget that is just making sure that you have some room for additional capital, cash funded capital over time. Then you've got some revenues, wastewater fees, your current rates revenues that are right here. You can see that they're covering, based on 2027, $1.7 million in revenues. You've got some other operating revenues. You've got some developer contributions, non-operating revenues, grants, and borrowed funds. So the borrowed funds are going to be paying for that digester project, and that debt service continues over time. Okay.
So what is the delta between the operating revenues and the operating expenses there for 2027? What is the difference, monetary difference between those two?
2027 has a surplus of $1.6 million, and then every other year beyond that has a deficit.
And that deficit starts at what? At 400,000, at 300,000? Where does that deficit start? In terms of dollars?
Deficit, yeah, the deficit itself is, if you were to just forecast to 2028, you're looking at almost $1.2 million of deficit, and growing over time.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So again, this is looking at, your cash flow summary, basically a pro forma here. And because 2027 is going to help out with some forward funds to help pay for that digester project, as well as some other funds to help pay for it. It'll get you through 2027, and then beyond that, the cash is set to be falling at that annual deficit. If you were to do this rate increase, or rate increases over time, it slowly balances it out. You can see that the bars then in 2029, 2030, 31, they're really close. You're balancing it out, and you're keeping that cash in a strong and balanced position into the future. Now, I think if I'm not mistaken, Emily, we on the wastewater side of things, it's just an across the board 20% proposed rate increase. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, we were looking at doing tiers in water, but for wastewater, it's just the 20.
And again, this is a first look at this. If anybody has anything, or even after this meeting thinks of anything that they'd like to see or any scenarios, we're more than happy to run any scenarios in here in terms of looking at things like debt service, looking at things like inflation over time, or potential additional capital projects that could be required for the city off into these future years.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you. One more question for you, sir. So without the $2.8 million loan, which is a kind of inner city thing, what would that do to our cash position? And then given the fact that you're proposing a 20% rate increase over time, when would we get back to that 50% reserve number on operating revenue? Do you have the ability to manipulate that?
Absolutely, and this is kind of our bread and butter here. I can clone any one of these rate scenarios and bring that in. So if we wanted to look at revenues here, the transfer in from water, that $2.8 million, if I were to get rid of it and we go back to the dashboard, you can see that with that 20% rate increase, we're still in pretty good position here. That your cash drops down, but it's going to level out at around $3.2 million in a cash balance versus $6 million. So it's really about the comfortability that you have with how much cash you want to have available in reserves.
And that reserve number is what again? For 2028?
2028, your operating threshold is 1.2 million.
All right, thank you, sir.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Cotton?
Calvin, just a quick question, on your possible solution modeled for water, wastewater. You're looking at an increase with an ongoing 5% inflationary increases, but on strictly the water side, you're only using a 3% inflationary increases. Can you tell me what the difference is?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the water side of things, because there's additional cash, because it does have a decent cash flow balance right now, a 3% increase is really just going to be able to combat inflation. So it's just going to be able to give you a well-balanced number over time. Again, these are projections and things change. So we would want to look at this on an annual basis and understand, okay, if 3% was enough on an annual basis versus on the wastewater side where the cash is potentially lower. And even if you were to make this new scenario here without that transfer in, where the cash is lower, it kind of requires a little bit more to be able to steer it back into a more positive position over time. But again, on an annual basis, you want to look at this and you want to be able to get to a place where you say, okay, we need to rip the Band-Aid off potentially for some, to increase revenues for both of these funds. When you do that, what do you need to do on an annual basis just to keep up with inflation? You probably need a 2, 3, 5, whatever it may be in any given year. But that's all about just, these are current projections. And once we get to a better cash position, we would just analyze that on a regular basis and understand whether it's a 5% or a 4% or a 3% or a 1%. But typically what we do find is not increasing rates is, as counterintuitive as it might sound, it's actually a disservice to the community because you're leading yourself into a place where you're going to have to do these large rate increases again in the future.
Thank you.
Mr. Graham?
And that's probably more for Eric, but is there a way that we can actually see the multi-layered, the final multi-layered product? It doesn't appear on our paper, but is there a way that we could see that and have that for our discussions?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can provide you with those.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll second seeing the additional ones. I really appreciate the information here. My question was, and I think Crystal's the one that's brought this to our attention a few times, is looking over this, it looks like we're not really differentiating between residential versus commercial customers here. Is there a way to run a scenario like that where we look at the commercial customers that are they tend to have a little bit heavier burden on our infrastructure than our residential use, and what it would look like if we more so relied on increasing their rates maybe at a more strict rate than our residential customers? Again, there's so many different variables, and I get that we're pulling a lot of strings here trying to make the numbers work, but I'd just be curious what we look like if we shifted the weight and changed the weight of the system a bit.
Yeah, Calvin, I'll answer part of it and then you can jump in if I missed anything. So Waterworth has a vast knowledge of how other communities bill for water and sewer. There's multiple different options. Some communities start with a fee that's based on the physical size of your meter. And so they'll have a monthly fee that's associated with the equipment and the potential for a facility to use a lot of water. So a big meter is going to have a much higher monthly rate for that meter size. And then it has what looks like a lower usage rate. So there's benefit to be careful with your water usage so that you see a lower bill. But the potential to have an 8-inch water line flowing means that you're going to pay a higher monthly rate. We don't do that. We have just a flat use fee. What we looked at with the water rate increase that Calvin talked a little bit about was because we ingested all of our water usage from 2025, we know what the top 50 users are, and they're all commercial. They're the large stores. They're the different entities that have substantial water use, and so we can see who is using the most water versus who is paying for the most water. And right now there's a bit of an unbalance. So the small residential users who don't use up to 5,000 gallons are subsidizing the high water usage. And so that rate structure that Calvin showed you broke that down and moved it around, but didn't actually increase every user's rates. So we would see a basic standstill of the fee for the smallest users who never get close to their flat rate. And then we see an escalation increase in the high users to reallocate those revenues that Calvin was saying. So we can manipulate all of those numbers. So we could go into a different style, like I mentioned, if we just want to talk about meter sizes, we can talk about stair-stepping the usage amounts. Parallel to that, we didn't do any of that on the sewer side. So if you use X amount of water, we take that number and we use that for the multiplication on your sewer rate, because if you're going to change one, we figured don't change both, because then you can't keep track where the changes. So the water side was kind of addressing the bulk of the users never coming close to their 5,000 gallon flat rate, and then a high amount of a smaller number of high water users. So I'll turn it over to Calvin to fill in whatever I missed.
No, that's right. It's you have the option to design rates however best sees fit. If you were to follow AWWA's M1 manual, you would want to do a full cost of service analysis and understand, okay, how much is a restaurant versus a bookstore cost us in terms of like actually delivering water from every element of water production to treatment to distribution, and understand that, and understand, and the best proxy for that in most cases is the meter size. You're going to have a bookstore is going to have a 5/8 inch meter versus a restaurant, which could have a 1 or a 2 inch meter. And the size of the meter kind of dictates a reserve capacity. It's a capacity of all the way back to the water source. And then it's also a capacity in terms of the pressure of water that you need to have in your system to be able to serve the potential that meter could actually pull out of your system at any given point. Maybe maybe they're at, maybe it's a car wash and they are closed during the evening, but you still have to have that pressure at, 24/7 ready for the potentiality of use out of that. So the most equitable, I guess, would say, way of charging for water is to follow the M1 manual by American Waterworks Association. But as most communities have found, they've just sort of found a system that works. Try to, ease towards something more equitable. Try to understand by looking at your billing data where the cross subsidies are happening and who is winning and who is losing versus for your current rate structure, and then finding opportunities to change that and see ways that you can make hopefully not such sweeping changes that it's going to affect some people's bills in a huge way, but to be able to get to a point where you can just make kind of micro adjustments along the way to keep your rates fair and equitable, but also the North Star is just making sure you have enough money in the bank, and that these funds are self-sustaining over time.
Madam Mayor, follow-up question to that.
Yes,
Anyway.
Mr. Crafton.
Looking at the slides you gave us under option B rate structure here. Eric mentioned that, sounds like our residential is subsidizing a lot of the water usage here. And that a lot of people aren't hitting that 5,000 gallons. I mean, I want to bet most people, and especially in the wintertime, aren't hitting that. Summertime, yeah, when you're out watering your lawn a bit more. And looking at that volumetric chart, 0 to 4,000 gallons, 50%. I mean, have we considered saying, hey, residential, have we considered lowering it, saying, hey, the average person's not even using 3,000 gallons? Why is the first charge start at 5,000 instead of 3,000 and shifting the structure entirely?
Yeah, so I'll start and then Calvin can jump in. So yes, in that option B, that rate structure dropped from a 5,000 to a 4,000. Calvin, do you think you could show that graph that we look at for the percentages of users?
Yeah.
This will have a lot of data.
So this does have where we're seeing the average people use roughly whatever it might be, whatever that number might be.
Yeah, so he's going to show you a graph that shows the number of users. So the big blue bar are the number of users and their average use.
Yeah, so this is a histogram that's showing all of the bills that were sent out in 2025 for water. And so you can see that if your first, is it the current rates go to 5,000?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So you'll see that there's a lot of consumption that's happening. A lot of people in Wasilla are using not a whole lot of water. And this is something that it's obviously more prevalent in the winter when there's not watering gardens and everybody outside. It's more in the winter, but the majority of your customers, in fact, if we get to 5,000 gallons, the cumulative number of bills here is 60.9%. So currently your base fee is covering the cost of 61% of all of your ratepayers. So only 40% on the other side of things, only 40% of your ratepayers are actually paying based on a volumetric use. And you'll see that this slides over time that, less and less users are using more and more water. And then if we go to the very far right here, you do have about 600 bills that are using, 50,000 gallons or above, which represents almost that 40% of water users. And it's probably going to be, if I were to look at just, we can go into a car wash, for example, is using all of their car wash bills are over 50,000 gallons. You've got all different customer categories here. Restaurants and bars are kind of all over the place. You're going to have a few of them that are not using much. Some of them are using a good amount, and then you got a lot that are using a lot. But all in all, if you're looking at all your customer categories, especially if we just look at residential, single family, the vast majority of them are using between, let's say, 2 and 6 thousand gallons, and then it kind of tapers off pretty quickly after that. So there's a lot of data here, and that data is meant to help you inform how you want to set rates, specific to how your ratepayers are actually using water.
Are we able to get that information, what I'm seeing here? Is there a way to get those snippets and slides?
Yeah, you'd like screenshots of those?
I mean, I'd love to be able to use it interactively, but I
Sure.
don't think that's gonna be an option.
No, I think we could work through that. I can work with the mayor and the clerks to see if we can get you insight into it. There is so much data, it'd be hard.
Yeah, it's hard to comprehend it all here. Also, I actually can't read about 90% of the numbers on that screen.
Fair enough.
So,
So one thing I want to make just a point on, Calvin's talking about bills. And so Cohills saved our day because they came in with a Cognos report expert and were able to extract all this billing information that was basically locked up in the old school program that we're using. And so that we've never had this record at all. No one's ever been able to see this before. So this was this kind of met what we thought was going on as we tried to figure out what was happening, but we've never been able to visualize this before. So when we figured out that the top 50 users were of classes you'd expect, like pools and car washes, it really made sense. But then to see that so many of our residential users don't even get close to their flat rate, then we are able to see how it's kind of off. It's offset by who pays versus who uses. But I know you want to dive into the details. We'll figure out a way to get you access so you can look at it.
I mean, it's gonna be a big portion of our decision making.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. To Calvin and Eric, one of the things that came to mind in this, when we start talking about water usage is, I'm also the president of Lakeview Association. We have one bill for 65 units, which would then make us a very high water usage, which would mean that we would be paying on a per capita a surcharge for the water. Is that correct?
That is possible if it's one bill. Yeah.
Okay, but I think that almost all condo associations or places like us are going to be in the same situation. Is that not true?
That's something we can look at. Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I hate to see us be penalized just because we're high usage because we've got 65 homes.
Yeah, we definitely want to run those numbers with you.
Thank you.
I can tell you one thing, which is that what a lot of communities will do is they add in a multiplier. So if you got 65 homes operating off of 1 meter, what typically happens is you have a single family equivalence multiplier. So if we were to say 0 to 4,000 here gets charged 0, we could scale that tier threshold by the multiplier itself. So for multifamily units, you would have, I can't do the math in my head right now, but 65 times 4 for that basic usage. And so it would actually multiply the tier threshold. So it gives a lot more, especially for multifamily units, because what we find for so many multifamily units is they have very efficient systems. A lot of time they'll have drip irrigation rather than sprinklers, and they'll have things that, and it's a lot of indoor water use rather than outdoor water use. And so we want to be able to benefit those communities by having rates that are exactly as close as we can proportionate to their impact on the system as a whole.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. Are there any other closing remarks you want to make, Calvin?
No, I think this was a good discussion, and I'm glad to be able to open it up. I'd like everyone to, take some time with their thoughts on their drive home, and if there's anything that comes up, Eric, I'm more than happy to chat with anybody about this, or host a workshop, or give login access to anybody. So, whatever works best for the city will work best for us.
Great, thank you. So I'll just say, I hope that you found that valuable. You can see that Calvin and Emily and the team are a wealth of knowledge. They have vast experience. And so there are a lot of options. So the multifamily use multiplier, they've been through that multiple times. And so as we kind of dive into the details and finally tune those numbers, this model and this team can make immediate updates so we can see, decision makers can see how that affects the systems and leads us into a stable relationship with our ratepayers. So really glad to finally get them to you. Like I mentioned, they're also a partner within AML. So there are other communities in Alaska that are going through this too. And so as you go back out to other AML events, I recommend that you kind of rub shoulders with your colleagues and see what they're thinking on the nuances of their billing reviews.
Ted?
I just wanted to answer Councilmember Grand's question. For FY 25, the water depreciation was $1,078,537. We project that for FY 26 amended budget, it'll be approximately $1,082,083. And if we spend like we believe we're going to spend in FY 27, it would be approximately $1,214,955.
And that includes the new digester.
Water.
Because we won't have the new digester.
Okay, so this is just water numbers. Thank you.
And again, the depreciation doesn't go up as fast as it does in water or airport because these are classified mainly as 50-year assets and not 20-year assets.
Right. Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So Calvin mentioned his availability to help answer questions. What do you want the administration's, do you want us to work through Eric to get to Calvin, or what, how do you want this to work?
Yes, would you please go through, Jamie, you want to come through you first and then to Eric or straight to Eric?
Through the chair, if you'd like, if you're going to email Eric, you can CC us just to help with tracking, but if you want to visit in person, I mean,
Yeah.
that's up to
Yeah.
the mayor.
Thank you.
Yep. Just if you want to go in person, just please call Eric and make an appointment so that everybody's on the same timeline.
And through the chair to Eric and the council too, we could use a conference room if we wanted to.
Yes.
The
Yes.
team up.
Yep,
up on
absolutely.
that, you
I'd be
know,
happy to
might
set
be
that up.
better too. So anything we can do to help as well.
Yep. Thank you very much. Appreciate you meeting with us tonight. Thank you, Calvin. I'm going to sign off.
Okay, thanks, take care.
Thank you, Calvin. You've been very helpful with the information. Thank you, Eric, for setting that up. I think we all have a better understanding. And I'm tired of paying for the car wash's water.
Madam Mayor, can we take just a brief ad easer? I don't want to put our deputy clerk on the
Yes.
spot. Do you think we're getting a stream now, Madam Deputy? No?
Okay, we will take a brief at ease.
Actually, she says it won't.
Oh,
Just for John.
so we're not streaming.
I'm still recording, so I can upload it. It's not
Okay, okay. Jamie, do you want to explain that?
This was, as the Public Works Director alluded, this was kind of a test run. We were afraid this was gonna happen. It was definitely on the table and our fears have come to fruition. But according to the Deputy Clerk, we still have a recording. We're just not live streaming. So anyway, that's where we're at.
And you'll put it
We're
up tomorrow?
old school tonight.
Yes, and she will put the recording up tomorrow, so.
We'll work towards it if we can.
Okay. We are now at public hearings. Madam Clerk, please read the ordinance by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ordinance serial number 2609, authorizing execution and acceptance of a state revolving fund loan in the amount of, put my glasses on, $282,781 for the legacy septic tank replacement project.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 26-09 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, I will bring it back to the dais and close public hearing. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 26-09?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton,
thank you, Mayor. Move ordinance serial number 2609.
is there a second?
Second by Councilman Johnson.
It's been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Johnson to adopt ordinance serial number 26-09. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton,
Thank you, Mayor. I know Crystal's usually been the one on some of these state revolving funds, but is this Eric? Could you guys give us a little bit more of a background and just kind of explain what your plans are with this? Because I know we've talked about using some of this for the or something like this for the digester. So just break it down for me a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So thank you through the mayor, Eric Shaw, Public Works Director, to Councilmember Crafton. So the state has been receiving EPA monies for a long time. And as the mayor and Crystal have really bonded with our congressional delegation and through the state, they've said, hey, we've got this revolving state fund, like we need to use it. And so with our new grants administrator and just strengthening our fiscal reception, if you will, we've gone to the state and said, what can we fund? And so we've talked about the water and sewer master plans. Those are funding sources that then we get reimbursed for. They also have monies for infrastructure. And so we have needs in kind of all of the water and sewer sites. We would call this need as a collections need. So this is to help fund replacement of sewer septic tanks that are known to be points of water intrusion, or they're old and they have a hole. So we need to go in and fix them. So that's very fundable by the state revolving loan, and they have rankings on what scores higher and lower for the funding they have available. So we put in this application to learn the process and to get funding for these critical projects. So it appears kind of small because we weren't sure what the limit of our ask was. As Crystal's been communicating more and more about the availability, that's why you see more and more projects, because they looked at our class. Is it class 4, Crystal? Yeah. Tier 4. We are a tier 4 city in their eyes. And so there's a funding amount that they want to shoot for. Their job is to get these monies out to communities just like us. So we've tackled different projects across the needs space within water and sewer. So this is what we're calling the legacy septic tank replacement project. And this lets us go in with consultant and contractor support to identify the worst set of tanks and replace those. This is a lot of work. There's a tremendous amount of paperwork that we have to put in. So it starts with an environmental review. We had to bring in some consultant support on that. We had to work with Holly to talk about our ability to receive these funds. This is bringing it to the council, is that, one of the final top public involvement requirements where the state says, we're going to do this. Is everyone on board? So there are multiple documents with our capabilities, our system, our requirements, our financial information, how it affects the neighborhoods, basically. So we look to tackle between 9 and 12 tanks with this funding. And it'll, of course, depend on the fine tuning of those cost estimates. But we submitted a list of, I think, 11 top tanks that we know are in a need of repair. And so this is the first construction money that will come out of that relationship with the state.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson,
Madam Mayor, Eric, so I believe this is a forgivable loan, is that correct?
Yes, finance
Okay,
is
and what
nodding
is
their
the
head.
term then of how do we get the forgiveness, in essence, get to be this, get the loan to become just a grant?
So can I defer to you, Ted, on the financial side?
From what we have understood with the ADEC loans is that they're forgivable as we spend the money and buy the tanks. And on the financial side, it's forgivable once ADEC tells us it's forgivable, then it becomes a revenue instead of a liability on our books. So when we sign the actual paperwork by the mayor, it becomes a loan on our books. But as we utilize the funds and meet the requirements and that they inspect it, then it transfers from the balance sheet onto our revenue and expenditures.
So just to follow on then, so this doesn't really affect our cash position then at all? Because it is actually revenue coming in that will, okay.
Right. There's a timing difference, but nothing that's going to be a large effect on our cash position.
Madam Mayor,
Kathy?
for Eric, I don't know, maybe I missed it somewhere, but is there a list of the proposed tanks that you submitted?
That's a great question. It's in the documentation, but I don't think it points directly to like names or addresses. So it's highlighted through our environmental review. We sent them a map with them, but it wasn't required for the actual agreement. It's just part of what we did to provide the location so that we met the environmental review.
Is it possible to get a list?
Absolutely. We'll be happy to share that with you.
Thank you.
Is there, Mr. Graham?
Thanks. So with this money, Eric, you know, we've had this project on the books for a long time and we were unable to spend the amount of money that we had allocated in the past. So is this money, we need to use it in 2027 or it's gone? Or is this a loan fund amount until we get these 11 or 12 tanks done?
Great question through the chair. So the impetus is on us to replace them. So they're not going to have a tight timeline on our part. Like you said, we hadn't had the capacity to do those tank replacements right. So now that we have our sewer master plan crew on board, we're going to be using the task 3 within that to use them as contract administrators so that we can force multiply and get this done. We've been unable to provide the oversight to do those correctly and not impact our neighbors. So I'm looking forward to succeeding finally and getting these important tanks replaced.
So even if we don't get them done by the end of the next fiscal year, that loan fund money is still available because it's identified as a project?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have time.
Mark?
So Eric, is this something that can be subletted, or do you think you have enough personnel to get these done in like say a year time frame?
Yeah, so we brought in our consultants to help us design those, and then we have contracts going out to install them. So I think we have structure now. We'll be successful getting this out.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Is there an objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The next public hearing is ordinance serial number 2626, providing for the adoption of the annual budget for fiscal year 2027 and appropriating funds to carry out said budget.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 26-26 is now open. Anyone wishing to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 26-26?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Crafton,
thank you, Mayor. I move ordinance serial number 2626.
is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
It has been moved by Councilmember Crafton and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to adopt ordinance serial number 26-26. Does council wish to enter committee of the whole to discuss the ordinance? If so, is there a motion to enter committee of the whole. Okay, then with no motion. Okay,
Madam Mayor, I move to postpone this ordinance till our next special meeting, which is scheduled on Wednesday.
yeah.
Review of seconds.
Okay, the motion's been made by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Rubio to postpone this ordinance until the next special meeting, which is Wednesday, the
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock.
budget meetings they start at 5 o'clock. Okay. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none. The motion is adopted. We are now at persons to be heard, a time for the members of the public to share their views with the council. Please note, this is not a question and answer period. Speakers may be referred to administration and items raised may be taken under advisement. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last names, and if you are a city resident, comments are limited to 3 minutes. The first one is Lori Hahn.
From here. From here.
No, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi. If you would turn the mic on, please. And please begin by stating your first and last name.
Right. My name is Lori Hahn, and I'm soon to be a city resident. I have property in the city, and we're in the process of building our home. I want to address the rezoning of the commercial to or residential to commercial for, I don't know the name of it, lots 2 and 3. And we, first of all, I just kind of want to make a note, maybe I missed something, but we didn't receive any type of mailing notification, for being a property owner in that direct area. And I don't know if that's normal or what the process is, but man, sure, it's very important to us and it's kind of a big deal with what they're proposing. In regards to them proposing this to be commercial, I just want to express a couple concerns that it is, we feel very strongly that maintaining a residential feel and character, commercializing that won't. Additional noise, traffic, it affects so many of us in that neighborhood that indirectly and directly, and us even directly, as far as that's what we would look at across the creek from where our property is on Snowbird. And it's, I don't feel it is residential. I feel like commercial. The other properties that are commercial are on Kinnick. They front on Kinnick Road. This does not. It seems to encroach more into the neighborhood. And like I said, it would be a direct visual for us and many others, not to mention noise, excessive noise. I mean, all that kind of things that go along with a commercial property. And just want to express my concerns regarding that. And I guess in the future, I know it's not a question answer, but is there mailings or something of a notification process for the owners or the property owners in the area that could be affected? No.
Holly?
Mayor, so this is a really interesting topic because what we're really talking about is the difference between a quasi judicial hearing and a legislative hearing. So with a rezone, we're really talking about amending the zoning map. So just like with Title 16, all of those things, the concept is the entire public of Wasilla has an interest in being a part of that conversation. It's legislative and it ultimately rests with the council. So that is why individual property owners don't get sort of the neighboring property
Right.
notice you might get with a conditional use permit or something like that. Because those procedures, those are based, the determination is based on, you're looking at the impact of that specific permit on neighboring properties. With rezone, you're looking at the impact of zoning on the community. And in fact, if we are looking at the specific interests of a particular property, we're at risk of committing spot zoning, which is just a way of saying illegal rezone. So does that help?
No, Madam Mayor, we need one point of clarification, and that is an introduction, because Lori is not part of the city. I want to introduce to you the city's attorney who speaks for the city. Thank you.
Okay. And the reason we purchased this property, it's our forever home where we're going to be. So it's like we're not there, but our house is halfway built and we have a permit through the city.
Okay.
So we,
Ma'am, you will have to come back and talk to the planner to get these questions answered.
okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
Well, Mayor, and I do think it's just worth noting that there is this process. It's completely appropriate for the public to engage and talk. You know, it's just that difference in notice. Did I address the question? I think that was sort of.
Yes, you did.
You did. I got it.
And next up is Bill Fletcher.
Hello, Council. My name is Bill Fletcher, and I am a resident of Wasilla. I actually live on Hard Rock Circle, and I'm talking in regards to the same topic. And in the past, there has been issues like this that have been drawn up, and I've been notified in writing of Fern Street upgrades, rezoning attempts on other parcels and things like that. So obviously, things are changed a little bit, but I did find out about this early this morning. However, so I would like it to be noted, I am here to oppose it. This rezoning, it's rural residential right now. They're wanting to go commercial. It is in a residential area with homes. Unfortunately, I spoke to other neighbors. They're even unaware of it. So this proposal, some of you may recollect, a couple of you, that this happened about 5 years ago. Same two parcels. This RFN out of Idaho Properties tried to rezone these two pieces. It was voted. We had our whole neighborhood come in. We had opposition, and it was voted down, which to me, rightfully so. It is zoned rural residential, in my opinion, for a reason. In the proposal, actually, RFN Properties even states it's my wife, Melody, and we live on old homestead land, and he's suggesting that ours even becomes commercial. I don't know why he's implicating that. I do not want my land commercial. We have a gorgeous home, 3 acres, landscaped. I don't want it. And then he's using his comps to say, well, Wasilla Concrete's there, Perk Up's there, Senior Center's there. And that is correct. And they're all on KGB. And that should be commercial as it is zoned. As we start to migrate into the neighborhoods, then like on Hard Rock Circle where these lots are, now we're in a residential area, and where does it stop? And that's where I'm at. You know, like I said, I would like to strongly opposing this. I think if there would have been notice sent out, just as there was 5 years ago, our neighborhood would have came together and said, please keep commercial where it should be. Not opposed. It's inevitable. There's going to be development, but let's keep it where it should be and not change the rural residential where we invested so much. And I mean, I built a shop, I built a 5,000 square foot home, and my neighbors are building gorgeous homes. And now for someone to come in, an out-of-state entity. Somebody the time.
You got a little more.
Anyways, as I mentioned, I understand it's inevitable. Please understand where I'm coming from and oppose this. Like I said, there is a place for it. It's just not in this neighborhood. And I did send an email earlier, I think with an aerial photo to help you visualize. There was a picture with it to try and understand where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Next up is Katie, and I'm not even gonna try. because I will butcher your last name. I'm sorry.
It's Katie Krivonasov. And I live off of 101 East Snowbird Lane, right across the creek. I oppose for the commercial zoning. We were only notified this afternoon about the properties being rezoned. While I understand the need for economic development, commercial businesses such as gas stations would likely increase traffic, create safety concerns for residents and pedestrians, and bring additional noise from vehicles, deliveries, and daily operations. Commercial development could also introduce brighter lighting, signages, and reduce privacy, changing the character of our neighborhood and potentially affecting nearby property values. I respectfully ask the council to carefully consider the impact on existing residents and require thorough traffic, noise, and compatibility studies before approving any rezoning requests. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I will close persons to be heard. And we are now on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the items for approval under the consent agenda by title.
Can additional people be heard?
Did you sign up?
It wasn't there.
I must have grabbed it.
And she did come in after the meeting had started, so.
Okay. Come on up. Just for clarification, we have a sign-up sheet in the back, and if you're not on that sign-up sheet, then that's where it cuts off. So make sure that you're here to sign up if you want to speak.
Is it possible to call in and get your name added to the list?
No, ma'am. You have to come and sign in. Because I could call in and say, I'm Jane Doe, sign me up. That don't mean that I am Jane Doe. So.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, council, for your willingness to hear me. My name is Ann Kilkenny. I am a resident. I came because of the water and sewer presentation. I was very pleased with the questions and comments, especially from Mr. Crafton and Mr. Johnson. Yes, there definitely has been a subsidy of commercial users by residential users. And I encourage you to not be afraid to correct that. After all, residents pay sales tax. Businesses only collect them. We are the taxpayers. We are the ones who have paid for the improvements to the infrastructure, the big tanks that enable the high pressure fire suppression systems that large commercial operations require. If we were all residential, we wouldn't have had to build as much infrastructure as we've built. And it's the residential customers that have paid for it. So don't be afraid to correct the system. And right now, other things that you might look at, there is no incentive to conserve water in the system, in the billing system. You might consider, if you're going to increase the rate, increasing the amount of water that people are allowed to use. You know, instead of lowering it to 4,000 gallons for the base rate, raise it to 6 if you're adding a 20% increase in the charge. After all, the water's free. There's no rates for low water users. I don't want to be ageist, but I know a lot of older people that are single. They don't use much water. And either do it by age or by just plain water usage. You know, there's got to be something like a flat rate under 1,000 gallons or something. There's no vacation rate. If you're gone for 6 months, you're still paying for 5,000 gallons a month. And also, there is an irrigation charge that I believe has been incorrectly billed to people. It was meant to be a credit on your sewer cost, because if you're watering your garden, you're not running anything through the sewer. But instead, it's been added to our bills. Thank you very much. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, bye.
Thank you, Ms. Kilkenny. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Linda Stotler, and I'm a resident over inside city limits off of Snowbird. I came to ask that you guys please look at not allowing the ordinance 2610 to come through. I was here 4 or 5 years ago with my son, who was working on his Eagle project at the time. He needed to attend a meeting, and that was the topic at the time about rezoning from rural residential to commercial and expanding the services that were already being done by the asphalt or the concrete gentleman who was there. We discussed the fact that it is right on a creek. And we were talking about tailings going into the creek, affecting the fish, affecting the waterway, noise pollution, lights at night. They were talking about putting lights up for night work, so that the lights would be then coming into the homes of the people across the creek. The creek is only maybe 20 feet wide. So we're not talking very far away from the neighbor across the creek. When you say across the creek, my children have all paddled up and down in a little canoe or swam in that creek from little tiny toddlers up until they were like 14, 15 years old. Kids utilize that creek for recreation during the summer to cool off. It is an actual family area that we utilized. So allowing this area, this specific zoning area to be changed from rural residential to commercial when it's not even on a main road. You can't get to it straight from Connecticut Bay Road. You have to go onto Fern and then turn onto a side street, Hard Rock, and then turn into their driveways. And that is no longer really commercial at that point. So I am against it, as my family is. And I was notified of this today around 3 o'clock this afternoon. So there was no prior notification that this was coming up again as a request. And I kind of feel like we were kept in the dark on purpose and weren't notified for some reason. And I don't think it's a clean play from whomever put that paperwork forward to start with. So if you guys could please take a finer look at it and hopefully turn it down, that would be really appreciated by my household. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no one else, we will now close public testimony and come back to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Items for approval under our consent agenda this evening are the regular city council meeting minutes, April 27, 2026 and May 11th, 2026. Our introduction was moved to new business, and as was a resolution, we have one resolution for approval under the consent agenda. That's resolution serial number 2632, approving a contract between the city of Wasilla and Siemens Mobility Incorporated for $184,408.25 in consideration for railroad signal materials for the East Glenwood Avenue Railroad Crossing Improvements Project.
Okay, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Second, Councilman Johnson.
It's been moved by Councilmember Cottle, seconded by Councilmember Johnson to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, it is approved. We are now, there is no unfinished business, and we have one item for new business. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're gonna actually do two items under new business. First is the introduction recommended for public hearing on June 22nd, 2026. And of course, that public hearing date is just a recommendation. The council can add additional public hearings or change the date. That's ordinance serial number 2610, amending the official zoning map of the city of Wasilla to rezone lots 2 and 3, Brookwood Commercial Park subdivision from rural residential to C commercial.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move 2610.
Seconded.
Are we moving for introduction?
Yes.
Moving for introduction and discussion.
Introduction and what date? Next
June
meeting?
22nd.
Not next week. Well, I need a second.
You have to pick a date, which technically would be the next meeting.
Oh, okay, then I would choose, I choose July 27th.
June 22nd.
It has
I
to
know
be.
that.
Madam Clerk, I believe it has to be the second meeting, right?
It doesn't have to be, that's traditionally our schedule.
Okay, to July the 27th?
Yes.
Okay,
Seconded.
the motion has been made to move introduce the ordinance serial number 2610 to July the 27th, 2026 by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by Councilmember Crafton. Is there an objection to the motion?
Madam Mayor, we would like to discuss this.
Mr. Johnson?
Okay. At the current time, rezoning ordinance 1615.020.2 says, and I quote, any person or persons provided an application for rezoning is accompanied by a petition favoring the proposed rezoning signed by the owner or owners of at least 51% of the property within the area proposed by rezoning. This particular thing is ambiguous at best because yes, it is a very spot rezoned, which is not really the intent of this particular statement in the at least my understanding is not the intent of rezoning like this at all. According to this, if I just spot check it, it takes one signature of the two owners of the property because these people are then excluded. So at this point, these people have no voice in this. So is what I really want us as the city council to do is to really think this through to make sure that people's voices are being heard in this process. And then we're not just ramming something down somebody's throat. In fact, I would like, the reason that I chose a date out at the 27th is to make sure that everybody in the community has time to understand what's going on and has a time to respond and actually speak to the council. And I'm afraid that just 2 weeks' notice is not enough time. That's point number one. Point number two is, I think that we're missing any kind of a real notification. There's no one here that was notified prior to this. And had I not actually seen this and realized that there was no signatures even in the application for the rezone, other than the applicant, I thought, well, what's going on? Who's speaking for the people? And so as a result, I actually would just like to reject the whole thing, but I'm not sure that that's legally possible for me to do at this point.
Is there further discussion?
Through the chair to Councilmember Johnson, I believe, unless I'm incorrect, that a motion to postpone indefinitely would be in order, which effectively kills the ordinance.
Madam Mayor.
Right.
Madam
Mr.
Mayor.
Kraft?
Thank you, Mayor. Two things here I find interesting. One, if this has already been denied one time, I get it, times change, and maybe it would be in the city's best interest to do something like that. But based on the data we have, which was in the packet for the Planning Commission, it says that the future land use map in detail from the Wasilla Comprehensive Plan tells us that it's actually in the city's best interest to leave this as generally residential, not to rezone this. So I mean, the fact that it made it to the planning commission's, or no, excuse me, the city council's desk, I mean, it should have stopped at the planning commission with the fact that, one, this has already been heard and was shot down, and two, our own comprehensive plan, out of date it might be, but that's the data we have to work with, tells us that we shouldn't even be here. And so, I mean, with what the clerk said, I already had the intention to make the motion to kill this because, again, we don't have to hear this if we don't want to, but it sounds like our attorney has a comment about it, so I'll hear our attorney first.
All right, so this is a very unusual world, the world of rezone. So I want to make 2 points. First, under the code, and this language from the code, it really tracks the statute and the case law. Unlike a lot of ordinances that you don't have to hear, with a rezone or any amendment to the zoning map, the council shall review, hear, and decide whether or not a request for rezoning shall be approved. So often when we just say a motion to postpone indefinitely, we kill a motion, which is absolutely the clerk's right. That's usually definitely within your bag of tricks as a council. This is different when that there's this, while it's been found by the courts to be legislative, they want you to go through this process of consideration. So I would recommend that you do that. And one other point that I think is helpful is that when we repealed the overlay district, and when by we, I mean you, not me, but when we went through that process together, we gave the notice to the property owners in that district and in that overlay district that are given in rezone, right? We gave the notice of an ordinance. When we do a repeal of a district or even change the terms of a zoning district, we provide the same notice that was provided here. So while I think it's definitely worth considering, you know, what you want notice to look like, that's why the rezone notice mirrors the same notice given to others who we put in districts and take out of them. We overlay districts and then remove them. And it's sort of, the idea is it's a really important conversation for the entire community to be a part of. And I think that supports moving the date. So just to Councilmember Crafton's comments on, well, can we just postpone it? I think in this case, that is a really valid and appropriate response, is to say this is really important. So we're gonna have more public hearing. So I would say it's even appropriate to stack on some public hearings, which is similar to Title 16. You stacked on a lot of public input. So we'll stop talking. But I think
Madam Mayor,
addresses
if I can follow up.
those issues.
I mean, my comment about postponing was to postpone indefinitely, because again, this has already been heard and shot down, it sounds like, by the council once already. I mean, my thought, I second it because second, it's for discussion, not for whether you approve or deny or deny what the initial motion is. I mean, do we really want to drag out and make these people wait another 6 weeks to make a decision on this one? I mean, the only other people not here to comment on it is the person that submitted it. So I mean, based on what the attorney's saying, is the attorney saying, yes, we do need to at least allow this to go to a regular meeting and have a public comment period where you have a direct public comment that allows for both people opposed and for it come forward. I mean, we've heard from a lot of them. I think we get the gist of what they're hearing, but we still have to hear both sides of it. So again, I almost would rather just do it at the next meeting and instead of dragging this out for these guys for another 6 weeks just to get another more public comment. I mean, we've heard from all the people that, or not all the people, but most of the people that live directly next door and across the creek on this one. So again, I don't like the idea of dragging this out for 6 more weeks on something that we already know what should be the answer.
Madam Mayor, may we enter committee of the whole, please?
It's a motion. You have to make the motion.
I move committee of the whole.
Is there a second?
Graham seconds.
With response,
Could I,
yes.
thank you. The motion has been made by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Graham to enter committee of the whole. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we are now in committee of the whole at 7:37.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Johnson.
in response then, I believe that meeting at the next meeting would not give the residents enough time to regroup to come back for a specific hearing, which is why I wanted it pushed off. While I do agree with Councilman, as I said, I wish that I could kill it, but previous advice said that because it had already gone this far, that a hearing was appropriate. So I sort of felt that we were stuck in this particular case of rehearing this. So that was the reason that I suggested it. And I do understand, Councilman Crafton, why you would want to just get it over with, and so do I in that respect. So is there any other comments?
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, both Mr. Johnson and Mr. Crafton. If we look at the reference that the attorney, just read, I mean, that's the new Title 16, and having talked with the Planning Commission or the Planning Office, they said notice was sent out the same as it would be sent out for a city council meeting, which meant it went on the website and it was published in the paper. We all know how effective those notices are in getting people to fill the chairs out here. If we look back to what Title 16 said prior to its change, it says, on a rezone, it does say public hearing notice shall be sent to the owners of the property located within 1,200 feet of the lot lines of the development. Much like we would do if we were looking at a conditional use permit. And while I agree with what the attorney said, this is much more specific to the city as a whole. It has very specific impacts to the persons who live in that 1,200-foot bubble. And when we did the Title 16 rewrite, and I use we lightly because a lot of that was done administratively, and then we fine-tuned a couple things, but the idea was to make it easier for people to deal with the city. And in many ways that happened, but in this case, it actually excluded people from dealing with the city that might otherwise want to deal with the city because they're unaware of what's going on. Because all they can do is check the website and see what's going on, and we know that the public generally doesn't do that. So while I would like to postpone this indefinitely, I think since it's been brought up, it really needs to be talked about. And Mr. Crafton's comment about, well, it's already been decided once, that doesn't mean it'll have the same outcome, and if we say, well, it was decided once, that kind of smacks of Open Meeting Act violations that we've already decided what to do before we get to the dais. And I sit too close to the attorney to violate the code on that. But so I support putting this out, but I would also support directing the administration to notify property owners within 1,200 feet of, requesting input and letting them know when that hearing is going to be, because it's my understanding that when this came up before, there was a lot of input that was received after that notification. And so to say that we don't want to hear from the public, which is not what we're saying, but to essentially say we don't want to hear from the public in specific, we want to just hear from the public in general. I don't think that's good. And when it comes to matters of property rights, I think people need to be notified and people need to be encouraged to respond.
Okay, Mr. Graham, you know that the frontiersman is no more.
Yes.
So we don't have a written paper, published paper. So everything we do now is on the website.
Right.
So for everybody's information, that's where you're gonna have to go.
Can I just add something for the
Yes.
sake of the public? We have a great thing, e-notification, so all you have to do if you're interested, sign up, and every time a packet's let, you can get an automatic link to your email address if you're interested. Just go with that, so it's actually pretty neat.
Madam Mayor. Well, I understand the interest in pushing out to the 28th. If we wanted more public comment, a thought might be is to add 2 additional dates. Instead of making everybody come back on the 28th, they can provide public testimony on the 22nd of June, the 14th, or sorry, not the 14th, June, 22nd of June, 13th of July, and then the 27th of July. It's summer, people are leaving a lot. You don't know what their schedule looks like. So instead of making them have to come back and make sure that they're in town for that 27th date, if we really wanted more public comment, my thought would be to actually add the 2 additional dates and then essentially make the final decision the 27th. I still want to make the decision next meeting, but I mean, it is what it is. So I would say that'd be my thought on it. We're in committee of the whole, so I can't make a motion right now.
Nope. Mr. Johnson?
Councilman Craft, I would support that. But again, I would also want to see the administration be asked to send out letters similar to what we would do for a conditional use permit within 1,200 feet. So I think maybe I have to make an amendment then to the motion as it stands. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay, I amend.
Holly,
We can't right now.
Yeah, I just
you can't do that in the committee of the whole.
No,
You have to
I
wait till
can't
we
do
come
that.
out.
I do also want to advise that the city does not deviate from the notification provisions in your code. So one of the things when you provide, again, you just passed an ordinance not that long ago where you changed the zoning that was imposed on individual property owners, and you gave them the notice that they receive under a legislative action. Now, the same exact thing will happen to other property owners, and you're giving them a written letter with notice. So in reality, all of those properties, which were hundreds, maybe more, did not get that treatment and will not going forward, right? Because that's that legislative process. We're not going to change what we do for every ordinance and provide every land use ordinance. Or maybe the council does want to have that conversation, which I appreciate, and I am not trying to be a naysayer, but I am trying to ensure that we treat everyone equally and we have uniform notifications. So if you send a letter like you do in a conditional use permit, we're treating a legislative action like a quasi judicial one, and that routinely gets municipalities in trouble. And so to the extent you want to consider an increase in notification, I would recommend you work with the clerk on an ordinance. Perhaps there's a way to incorporate a requirement that's imposed on the petitioner to provide notice as part of their petition. And I'm completely thinking sort of creatively right now, but that would be the avenue. We have a law, let's comply with the law. If you want to change the law, we'll work and see what we can do to get you where you're trying to go.
So, Madam Mayor,
My advice.
Holly, this question's directed at you. I mean, the existing ordinance, as I read, says any person or persons provided an application for rezoning is accompanied by a petition favoring the proposed signed by the owners. So the only question is as to who does that particular petition, and I would probably agree with you that it should be the petitioner. So if you want to rezone a property, I would expect the petitioner to go around to everybody within that and get the petition signed off or not, and then come back as part of the application. Is that sort of what you're thinking?
Exactly. And
Okay.
I haven't thought through it too much, but to me, that avoids the issues of treating similarly situated people dissimilarly. So it provides us an avenue, I believe, but I would say I'd ask the clerk if this is an appropriate thing for like the interested council member to.
Point of order, it's, I mean, we're discussing whether or not we want to move this forward. Is that really germane to the topic right now? Whether whether we're drafting an amendment to Title 16? I feel like it's discussion for another time.
I think only because the question was, can I amend my motion to provide the letter notification? So that's,
Yeah.
it was just, I gave such a long-winded answer. I think it got lost in the shuffle.
Okay, is there further discussion in committee of the whole? Hearing none, is there a motion to exit committee of the whole?
So moved by Councilman Johnson.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
The motion has been made by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Crafton to exit committee of the whole. Is there objection? Hearing none, we are out of committee of the whole at 7:48. And we are back to the original motion.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton,
Thank you, Mayor. I'd move that we add 2 additional public comments for, sorry, I forgot what ordinance this is. Ordinance 2610 to be had on June 22nd and July 13th.
Through the chair, to Councilmember Crafton, would you mind if you move to strike July 27th and insert June 26th, July 13th, and July 27th?
Sorry, one more time with those dates.
We'll just strike the original July 27th, and then we'll just add the 26th, the 13th, and the 27th.
Correct, yeah.
okay,
Rubio seconds.
okay. The motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Crafton, restate your motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we add public comment to June 22nd, July 13th, and July 27th for ordinance serial number 2610.
And that motion is to amend Mr. Johnson's motion, which is on the floor. Is that correct?
Right,
Yeah.
right, it is to amend. Okay,
Can it get any more confusing?
oh, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Anyway, is there, further discussion? Hearing none, is there objection to the motion? Is everybody perfectly clear with the motion?
Clear as mud.
Okay. All right, the motion is passed. There will be public hearing on ordinance serial number 2610 on June the 26th, July the 13th, and July the 27th. And I'm going off of my thing here.
Madam Mayor, to clarify, June 22nd.
Oh, sorry, 22nd.
Mhm.
I forgot my hearing aids. Anyway, to you guys, please sign up for e-notifications on our website. That way you don't miss anything. Yeah, they can be annoying, but sometimes it pays to be annoyed. Because frontiersmen don't publish anymore, so that's the way we are getting notifications stuff out.
Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification, I think the vote we just took was to amend the motion on the floor. So do we now need to vote on the motion on the floor?
Yes, technically you do, because
Yes.
what could technically happen is somebody could offer another amendment, so.
Back to the
I'm
main
assuming
motion.
there's, no objection.
There's no objection to that motion,
To the main motion.
to the main motion.
As amended.
I'll see you.
No, Stu
you
started
and
it.
you after this meeting. Anyway, I don't even know where we're at now.
We're on the second item.
Okay,
Resolution
2633. Yep. Okay,
Next on the floor is resolution serial number 2633. That's opposing Matt Nuskis to sit in a borough ordinance serial number 26032, which would impose a 6.5% area-wide sales tax and repeal the area-wide property tax, subject to voter approval at the November 3rd, 2026 regular borough election.
okay. Is there a motion to approve resolution serial number 26-33?
Madam Mayor, I move 2633 by voice vote.
Is there a second?
Rubio seconds.
The motion has been made by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Rubio to approve resolution serial number 26-33. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Graves?
I would like to see the resolution changed, to where it says we're,
Can we just, are you gonna amend it?
yes. But, to where it says we're opposing this 6.5% area-wide sales tax. This thing is bounced from 5.2 to 9%. I would just say we want to oppose implementation of an area-wide sales tax without the reference to the number. So how would I go about that, Madam Clerk?
But there,
Because right now, the resolution says we're opposing a specific
right,
number, and I think we are opposing any area-wide sales tax.
I think you're gonna have to change the entire ordinance, resolution. The entire resolution, the entire agenda statement is built around the opposition to borough ordinance serial number 2632.
right. That's what we are opposing, is that specific ordinance.
Right, but just like we amended ordinances here at the dais, they could do the same. And we know how the borough operates. I mean, they'll come back and say, well, we didn't do 6.5%, we only did 5.8%.
Then we pay attention and do the same thing again.
All right, if everybody's happy. I'm just concerned.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Crafton?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of seeing where Mr. Graham is going. My thoughts on it are towards the end, the therefore be it resolved numbers 2 and 3. We're kind of offering up other ways around it with the borough. And I would like for us to just say no, just a flat no, we oppose this. Unfortunately, government tends to have a slippery slope when it comes to levying taxes. And sometimes once something's put in place, it's really easy to add on to it. And so what I wouldn't want them to see is essentially what this would say is, hey, we don't want you to put a tax on us, but everywhere else in the borough's okay, is what number 2 and 3 says. I don't want that put in place because then they could just as easily flip around and say, hey, we want to add it back to the city of Wasilla. It's kind of a slippery slope. What I would like us to see is saying, we oppose 26032. Like, it's just a flat statement. Nothing else is needed to be said. We don't want to offer them up some other way. We oppose a sales tax being implemented really in the borough as a whole. That's the way I'm looking at this. So to me, I would look at striking everything from 50 to 56 as a whole. Our attorney has something it looks like she wants to add.
I do. I'm looking through this to see how to make the amendments that reflect council's intent. And I just do have a question because the way 2 on line 50 reads to me is that you're saying if the borough wants to impose a tax, a sales tax outside the city, all city boundaries, whether it's Wasilla or Houston or, you know, that is, you're not taking a position on their power to and authority to tax borough's property. Yeah, because, so I think that's, if you're going to make that decision, just, I want to make sure that you're really saying that you're going to weigh in on their ability to tax property outside all cities.
Well, the way this reads, is
That's very different.
number one says we oppose it. And then number two says, oh no, what we really oppose is you implementing it on us. Go ahead and amend it. That's what that reads. And what I'm saying is there's no reason for the city of Wasilla to say that, because honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to us. So all we need to say is we oppose 26032. That it's just a flat and end all statement. There's no additional conversation to be had other than we oppose it. That's what I'm saying.
Just strike 2 and 3.
2 and 3, yeah, because 3 is basically just saying, hey, we want to retain our ability, and it's still it's referencing 2 by saying, hey, you amended it, but we still want to retain our ability, or you impose taxes. My thing is that you're essentially implementing and seeding an idea of, hey, if you did put a sales tax in place, here's a way that you can it still benefits us. And I don't even want to have that conversation. I want us to just say we don't want this, period.
Madam Mayor, I propose amendment number 1 to the motion. Amendment number 1 would state that we strike lines 50 through 56 of the resolution.
Seconded. Thank you, Mr. Graham.
Okay, the motion has been made to amend resolution serial number 26-33 by striking lines 50 through 56,
Which is essentially the number 2 and 3
number 2 and 3.
out of the
know
no,
if
therefore
we can
be
do
it
that.
resolved clause.
Okay. Is there discussion? Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, then the resolution serial number 26-33 is amended. So back to the main motion.
Madam Mayor, I just want to say I fully support this and appreciate the amendment. Thank you for putting this forward, Rubio. I was actually working on it myself, so.
The main motion is to approve resolution serial number 26-33 as amended. Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Johnson?
So my concern originally is when we struck those lines, I mean, I obviously would get outvoted on that, is that we are actually going outside the authority of our city council to tell the borough what they can and cannot tax. Okay, what I'm really objecting to is the borough taxing, adding their 6% sales tax to Wasilla. That's within our authority. So, yeah, I'll vote for it, but I think that it was better written prior to it, but that's beside the point.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call vote?
Certainly, this is on the adoption of resolution 2633 as amended. Councilmember Cottle,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Schmidt,
Yes.
Councilmember Crafton,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rubio.
Yes.
Motion passes with Councilmembers Cottle, Graham, Schmidt, Crafton, Johnson, and Rubio in support.
Okay, we are on to communications. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. We have no informational memorandums. We have 4 sets of commission meeting minutes. Airport Advisory Commission, March 19, 2026, April 16, 2026, and on to Parks and Recreation Commission meeting minutes, May 13th, 2026, and Planning Commission minutes, April 28, 2026.
Okay. We are now at audience comments, which is a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and if you are a city resident, comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening again, council. My name is Ann Kilkenny. I'm a city resident. I've been coming to city council meetings. When I started, I didn't have any gray hair. that means that I've seen many changes in formats and procedures and things. And I apologize that I wasn't here early enough to sign the persons to be heard sign-in sheet. I am signed up for the e-notices or whatever you call them. I read them. And I notice it says persons to be heard 3 minutes per person. It doesn't say you must be registered and you must be there at the opening of the meeting. So to be more helpful to the public, I would suggest that you put that in your agenda if that is exactly the way you're doing things. Because let me tell you, in the past, it hasn't always been that way. We did have a persons to be heard list, sign-in sheet, but they always took additional persons to be heard from the audience. I do thank you very much for that time. Lots of good improvements, especially this sound system and your mics. And I'm looking forward to what you decide or the debate and discussion about the water and sewer rates. I alluded to the irrigation water rates. When the last set of water rates were initiated, residents came and said, golly, the water that we use on our lawn doesn't go in this sewer. So why are we having to pay sewer charges for that water? So there was an ordinance created that there would be no sewer charges on waters that went into your yard. And if you paid $285 or something like that, you got a special meter installed that kept track of the water that did not go into your house, but just went to your hose bib. Well, that's not the way it's been working. Even though I have been using less than 5,000 gallons, I get an additional charge for the water that I use in my yard. And it should be at credit. And 21, 27. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else?
Madam Mayor, Council, my name is David Seals for the record, and I'm a resident of the city of Wasilla. Once again, we're filling holes in Title 16. I would suggest that we keep a list of where all the fingers are in the dikes so that we can fix them when we come back to finish up Title 16. And I would seriously suggest that during these 3 meetings on this hearing about the rezone, that you would ask the city attorney to give you a class in zoning. I think it would be a well-advised class for all you council members to have read to you or go through. As part of the planning commission, we did have that training. And the notification was to code. Plus, that means another finger in the dike. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Is there anyone else?
Linda Stotler, and yes, I am a resident of Wasilla. I just had some questions that maybe you guys don't have or already have filled out. Like, whose responsibility was it to complete that packet that said that they were getting notification to the residents of the area? And was that packet completed and submitted to the planning department when they asked for the rezone? And if there weren't any names on that list, why was that brought forward to you guys to start with? I'm confused as to what the process is for getting something to this level without having all of the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and then having to retrace our steps and go back again and waste everybody's time 3-4 meetings over. So that's a concern for me. And You know, as far as the water project, I love the idea of you guys getting the water upgraded and the sewer system upgraded. That's been something that's been on an agenda for a very long time. I've been in the valley for over 25 years, and it's been there for a very long time, and it's been needed. And as the communities are growing and the city is growing, more infrastructure is necessary. And so I appreciate you guys taking the time and effort to put focus on that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Hearing nobody, seeing nobody coming forward, we'll close audience comments, bring it back to the dais. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just we'll see everybody here Wednesday, 5 o'clock, and we will have food.
Ooh. Madam Attorney.
I do have a quick comment because I think this issue will continue to come up with Title 16. So I just want to be very clear. I want to state that the rezone provisions in the code were discussed during joint meetings with the council and the commission, and they reflect current law, and they were followed by both the planning department and by the rezone petitioner. That said, I think it's great and a great practice for council to consider ways that they want to make the code better or different or change it, but I want to be careful that we don't talk about holes as if there is something that is deficient about Title 16. I'm sure we'll find things where something doesn't quite work, and council will revisit that during phase 2. But there's also these things where you see them at play and you say, well, how do we get creative and come up with a new solution? And I don't think it's in the city's best interest to act like there's either any illegality or deficiency in what the department's doing for notification or otherwise. So that's all I have to say. No further comment.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Well, that was a very interesting meeting. Heard a lot, learned a little bit on that. And appreciate everybody coming down to testify and tell us what your concerns are with the district or zoning change. Thank you very much for coming down. We definitely needed to hear what you guys are facing and what you're up against. So I appreciate that, and thank you for the good meeting.
Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of the council and staff, and particularly to those who came to see how the sausage is made. You know, here at the council changes every year. You know, you get 2 seats that rotate through, and then the administration, you know, changes or is refreshed every 3 years. So there's always a lot of different things, you know, in play. I mean, I've been here 11 years. I was here for the rewrite, you know, which primarily, you know, happened on an administrative thing, and then it comes to the council to get approved. You know, and then I was here for water rates, you know, 10 years ago when we did water rates. So things happen and things change. And in response to the attorney's comments, nobody has accused the city of not doing what the code has said. But we have identified an area where the code perhaps is not adequately protecting the property rights. Perhaps there's a better way to do that. And that was what was identified, and that was what was being said. It wasn't being said, oh, we need to fire the attorney because she's not following the code. Nobody's saying that. But you know, and staff changes all the time. You know, we haven't had a planner for a couple of years now, pretty much. So you know, I mean, things happen, things change, interpretations change, and the planning commission, you know, does a great job keeping up with things and making things happen. And Mr. Seals was exactly correct. The procedure for notification was followed, but unfortunately the procedure doesn't say notify you and notify you. It says notify the world. Where it used to say, last time you said, you know, 5 years ago, it used to say notify you and notify you. So that discussion will come up again, I'm sure, because Title 16 is a living, breathing thing, and it's one of the things that's already on our plate, so to speak, is to work on what we're going to call phase 2 of Title 16 to see what's going on. So please, you know, continue to come. Please continue to provide input. And you know, like so the clerk and the mayor said, those e-notifications are kind of nice. It only takes about 3 minutes to read through the council agenda, And then if you want to go to the packets, you can actually get the packet online and you can look at very specific things. So, please take the time to do that. But most importantly, take time to come to these meetings when there's something that affects you. We always enjoy hearing from you, even when you disagree. But when you come and you testify here, a decision has not been made. So your input is shaping that decision. So it's a lot easier to shape the decision in your way than it is to go back and change a decision to be something else. So thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate everybody's attendance.
Councilmember Crafton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all all who stayed and provided your testimony tonight. I will echo what Mr. Graham said. Only part I will definitely repeat though is the e-notifications. I know when I wasn't on the council, I did the same thing as I made sure to get those e-notifications. Sign up for, I think it's all of our boards and commissions as well. So you can get the councils, the planning commission, airport, and Parks and Rec. And the agenda portion is only 2 or 3 pages. Pretty easy read and just look over to see what's happening. And then you can dive into something that matters to you. So I really highly encourage it for everybody to make sure you're getting those notifications. A couple questions I did have, probably over to Mr. Shaw, is what Ms. Kilkenny brought up about the septic irrigation or situation where essentially it was, again, it's the understanding that not all water runs through the public sewer system. And so there is supposed to be a balance created between there. Do we have any insight into that?
Yeah, so I can look into how many accounts use that portion of the code. But under the water code, there's a section that says metered customers connected to city sewer system, they may install an irrigation meter at their own expense that measures the volume of water that's used for irrigation. Irrigation water that's measured by the city approved meter installation shall be deducted from the sewer portion of the monthly utility bill. And then they must be hard plumbed in and we have to be able to read them once a month. So I'll get with our utility billings clerk and figure out how many of those folks are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, an update on that later, especially with all the water sewer discussion we're having would be great. Second question would probably be to what would be our acting planner, even though her name tag decided she threw it on the ground, made a bunch of noise. What Mr. Seals mentioned is that, again, nothing's perfect, no document is perfect. What is the Planning Commission doing to review Title 16 actively or to find these holes per se, to bring forth recommendations to the Planning Commission or to the City Council per the code?
Thank you to Councilmember Crafton. So the planning department is implementing each and every bit of this code every day, and we're learning we're not perfect. We're trying to be as transparent as possible, and still, I've had some conversations with some council members is that we have to have these conversations to figure out what is going to be the right fit for this community. And I would just say it's growing pains, and we're going to learn if this rewrite, the first one procedurally, is going to work. The notifications, I think, is a great example because our code is really aged in a print option for notifications. Now it's digital. And so that's a change that the stakeholders are going to have to make if they want to stay up to date. But those simple procedures, even though they're very simple to write out, sometimes they're not always welcome. And so we are only as good as the code, and we're only as good as the feedback we get from you and the applicants as well. Our goal in planning is to move these applications to the commission as soon as we can, as well as to the council, and not delay them and waste applicants' time, because their time is really valuable.
Add to that.
If you could, attorney, yeah.
I mean, just to give you a time period. So the goal after the adoption of phase 1 of Title 16 was to bring a cleanup ordinance to council about 1 year from the date of adoption. So we have a running list. We keep that both at the attorney's office and at planning, and it has changes we are making too. There's some changes to notification. There's some small changes to just language that we think will be more effective and transparent and clearer. So we continue to add, and in fact, when you make the comment regarding, well, what about, having the petitioner provide? We'll add those to the update, which will be to the clerk's office, and the goal is to have that to them in September, and then it'll come before council, and really we'll stay on track for that sort of 1 year. So if you have changes that you think you want to put forward, but they're not so substantive or emergent that you want them right away, I'd get them to the clerk's office and we'll get those incorporated.
So,
Consideration.
go on.
Through the chair to the council, I can honestly say right now, Holly, the attorney and my office has taken a pretty deep dive into the appeals portion. And so we are actively working on it. It may not seem like it, but we really are.
So are we waiting to lump sum this, or are we trying to tackle these concerns and questions about the code as we go? Because I mean, as great as a lump sum is, we see what happens when we tackle Title 16 land use development as a lump sum. It doesn't always go over the greatest because we're trying to take a 30,000 foot view when we really don't want to. We need a finer tooth comb going through that, and we can't get into the weeds as much as we'd like to. So I mean, I would personally prefer that the Planning Commission is churning out and saying, hey, here's a section. That way we can look at things individually sometimes versus too much as a whole. I get sometimes one section's going to affect another, and it's kind of this chain circle event that happens. But again, still, I'd almost like to see things happening individually that can, so that, again, we're not having to spend hours and put extra meetings in place because we're going, oh man, we have all these 5 pieces that we have to look at. Now we have to take all this extra time to do that. When the Planning Commission can review the code periodically, say, hey, here's a recommendation. Council, this is where we found that we could do better, and we'd like you to review this portion. That's just my thought. I see Crystal is writing notes down, so I'll leave it at that. But that's just my thought on it, and I understand that there might be parts of it that you're having to delay due to further review. So thank you.
Well, I just want to be clear, we're following council's direction. So council, when we did Title 16, we came up with this process to make sure we have the initial review of phase 1 before we start phase 2. So we can definitely revisit that approach, but I just want to, these are decisions that were made by city council in joint meetings with the commission. So, and
Well,
we can change.
Well,
I just
the
wanna
other thing
make
I
clear.
had done was with the Planning Commission's code that specifically says that they're supposed to be reviewing parts of Title 16 periodically and provide recommendation. That's part of their duties, is to provide recommendations to the council on things that can be updated or changed. And that's more so the point I'm trying to make here. Does that make sense?
Jamie? Through the chair to the council, the only other component, and Councilmember Crafton, that does make total sense. We also were kind of holding because of the comp plan. Much in Title 16, we flagged for kind of phase 2 really was to coincide with the comp plan. So I kind of call this phase 1.5, maybe some of these procedural minor issues that we are currently working on that may come in September, but the bulk of it, I think, of phase 2 was flagged for after the comp plan was completed.
We really don't have too much in that, what we're looking at, and this is not going into so the Planning Commission looks at components of Title 16 on a regular basis that they want to change. For example, do we want to look at non-conforming status and change the way that works? Those more substantive policy based. What I'm referring to for September is it is a cleanup of language. And so while we can include policy decisions, changes in policy in the considerations of council, we want to go a different direction than where we went. And again, it's not, and I would encourage council to not use things, and this is not defensive. When we say things like it doesn't adequately protect the property rights of an individual, that's a legal statement. We're saying it doesn't adequately protect the property rights, which means all those people we don't give notice on our regular legislative, we're not adequately protecting their property rights. So I would encourage you, if you want to change things in the code, I absolutely encourage active discussion regarding that, but be careful on accusing your code of being inadequate in the things that it does in a legal sense. And if you do, I promise I will be here and I will push back, not to be defensive, just to make sure our record reflects that.
Right. Okay. Councilmember Rubio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good meeting tonight. Love the community coming out tonight to voice their thoughts and concerns. You were heard respectively, which helps with the collaboration of the team, and that's takes the community to actually come and sit in the seat and speak, and that's brave. And so we respect that. And as I always say, teamwork is a dream work. So we do have to work together. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, members of the council, mayor, and councilor. Appreciate your comments. Thank you, members of the public. So with the expanded meetings, I'd encourage the public to support at least one of the opportunities ahead, although I don't think you need to come to everyone. I think the most important one, though, will still be the last one, where the council will take action. However, I myself will try and make sure that I have written down all of the people and the comments that we have to take your voice into account. And again, thank you very much for your participation tonight and your support. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Cottle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really good meeting tonight. I have to say, with all the information that we got for water and wastewater, gives us the opportunity to look at a lot of different scenarios instead of just saying we need to do 20% here across the board or whatever. It gives us a lot of flexibility, and I'm looking forward to kind of diving into that and seeing what works the best for all of the residents here and the businesses. I like the fact that we don't have to be tied to just a certain number. And using that information, you can look at so many different levels and things like that. So I think that's a really good thing, and I appreciate that information coming forward. You know, we did so much work on Title 16, and we did a lot of really good work on it. We made it so much more user-friendly. We made it better for everyone in the city. But you don't always know until after you do something an effect it's going to have down the road until something comes up. And that's part of living, breathing documents. And it's like, well, you know, maybe we should rethink something, or it sounded perfect when we did it, but you don't always realize what the little domino effect can be down the road until something happens. So I'm looking forward to us looking at some of these things and putting the work in and making a document that we have really improved even better. So I really do look forward to that. Part of me doesn't want to wait till September because I want to move things forward and make things better. But we've done a lot. I mean, the council, the administration, the planning commission have all worked very hard on this and done a lot. When you look back at what we started with and what we ended up with, we went from this to this, you know, which was really nice. But there's always more work that we can do, and we can constantly improve. And things change. What worked 5 years ago may not work as our community grows and changes. So I think it's good that we look at it and we listen to the public and their concerns, because this is who it affects. So what I think is a really good idea, I might be full of baloney to somebody else. So I do look forward to continuing some work on this and making improvements. So, thank you.
Madam Mayor, during my comments, I forgot one thing totally unrelated to zoning, water, anything else we talked about. May I ask one question of the
You've got 2
Director.
seconds, but go.
It'll probably only take that much. In the Parks and Rec minutes, it talks about Jess Griffiths talked about removing the caboose from Nunley Park. Could you update us on that? Because we had asked you to remove it and sell it.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So we had talked about kind of the standard city disposition process. We don't have our auction date set yet. I work closely with purchasing and procurement to figure when that is. We'll let you know as soon as that date's been selected, but they're collecting their summer auction items still, so.
Mr. Graham, why don't you just buy that thing? I'll sell it to you for $1.
For $1, all right, I'll buy it.
You'll buy it for
I
$1,
will.
but you have to move it.
I will.
Okay. Eric, you heard that. Anyway. I don't want to see it online, Amy.
Do I hear 3?
Anyway, Miss Kilkenny, I am really happy to see you. I have a story I'm going to tell you about her. Back in the day when I was on Planning Commission, we had something about a noise ordinance. And Miss Kilkenny came and she plugged up her vacuum cleaner and made her point about a noise ordinance. I'll never ever forget that. And that's been, 15 years ago, probably. But anyway, that's my story about Mrs. Kilkenny. When you've been around the city as long as I have, 35 years, and I was a hairdresser by trade, you kind of know everybody. Eric.
I just want to take a minute to ask Mr. Johnson, how about them rocks?
I love the rocks.
Oh, good.
For those who don't know, there's a line of rocks now that are going to try and keep the vehicles actually on the road by the train station rather than using it as a playground for vehicles.
Okay. Thank you all. Your concerns have definitely been heard. But, what was it? 2-3 years ago, the federal government come in and they said, you are no longer rural, you are urban. And that brought a lot of changes that we have dealt with. The way we've always done it, we can't do anymore because a lot of it is federal regulations and whatever. And so we have to change our code to meet some of these regulations and whatever. And like Title 16, I'm not going to send somebody out there to count how many little bushes you've got, and if they are this big around or that big around and all that crap, I'm not going to do that. I'll tell you that right up front. I believe we ought to have landscaping things, but I don't think that I've got an employee, I'm going to waste their time, my money and your money out there counting these bushes and trees and all that crap. I'm not going to do that. So that's what started Title 16 changing. And we worked diligently for 2 years, maybe longer, on changing it. Is it perfect? By no means. It is not. It won't never be. Because that code book is a living, breathing document. And as this city evolves, it has to change. There's just no other way out of that. I'm old. I don't like change. I want it to stay just like it was. But that don't happen. This is society, and Wasella's growing. Did we expect all this growth? No. You've been here how long? Long time. And, when I came, there's one light. So look where we're at now. But we are a growing, thriving city. And it's one I personally am proud to call home. And I want everybody to know how proud I am of Wasilla. And if you don't believe me, ask people that have meetings with me. They will tell you if it's not about Wasilla. I just don't have time. I got to go. So with that, I need a motion to go into executive session.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move to enter into executive session for matters which the immediate public knowledge of would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the city. Matters by which law, municipal charter, or ordinance are required to be kept confidential. To discuss matters involving consideration of city records that by law are not subject to public disclosure.
discussions of matters subject to attorney-client privileges, specifically to discuss the collective bargaining agreements between the City of Wasilla and the Alaska District Council of Laborers of Local 341. Those present in the executive session will be the entire council, the mayor, the city clerk, the human resource manager, and the city attorney, Jennifer Alexander.
Okay, is there a second?
Seconded.
It has been motioned and seconded, and any objection? Hearing none. We are at 8:32. We are headed for executive session, and the rest of you guys are excused. I will see you tomorrow. Yes. 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 Is there a motion to exit committee of the whole?
Madam Mayor, I move that we exit committee of the whole.
All
Or
right,
ex-
well,
executive session.
executive session, whatever we was in.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Schmidt, are you?
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Councilmember Johnson and seconded by Councilmember Schmidt to enter, to exit committee of the whole.
Madam Mayor. I move that we
Executive
exit committee of the
session.
whole.
All
Or
right,
ex-
well,
executive session.
executive session, whatever we was in. There,
So moved.
an objection to the motion. Is there a second? None? The time
Schmidt,
is
I'll second that.
8:57 and with no further business.